The Aggies have a ton of position battles as we are nearly halfway through fall camp. When are we going to know the starting lineup?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. There are so many position battles on this 2023 Texas A&M football roster. And what I want to know is, when are we going to know who's starting? So, we have seen starters, we've seen starters begin to get named. I was literally just on Twitter. Auburn named their starter. Arizona State's getting close to naming their starting quarterback. When is Texas A&M going to name their starting lineup? Now, does it matter that much? No, it's not like it doesn't matter a ton. But to me, I think that reps are valuable. This is my stance on the matter. I think reps are extremely valuable. So for those that comment, and which is it's a fair thought if you feel this way, but those that kind of think, oh, it doesn't matter, they'll make the decision when they make the decision. No reason for us to rush it. I agree with you, but I think those practice reps are so valuable. Those practice reps against the starting Texas A&M defense, the reps against the starting Texas A&M offense are massive for every player on this roster. So Connor Wigman and Max Johnson that are competing for the quarterback job. We still here on Locked On Aggies believe it's going to be Connor Wigman, but how many reps is Max Johnson taking with the starters? I want Connor Wigman getting every single rep with the starters against this starting defense. That is how you get ready for the season. You got to see live action, the real deal, the real stuff, a true SEC opposing defense. For the defensive position battles, you have to see a real SEC, opposing defense. We've talked about with cornerback. Is Javon Thomas going to win the job? Will Grimes take it back like we thought? Is Sam McCall going to win the job? I want those guys guarding Noah Thomas. I want whoever's going to win this job to be guarding Evan Stewart and Noah Thomas and Moose and Anaya Smith. That's what I want to see. So I get, Jimbo Fisher, old-fashioned guy, likes to keep it close to the, I get all that. Stay away from the media on it. Keep it close with the program. Maybe the team knows. I don't know. I don't know the inner workings of that, but it's still very clear coming from fall camp that people are mixing in with the ones. People are taking these reps. And to me, those reps are extremely valuable. You have to have them. You have to feel the game speed. You have to know all that. So I personally want the starters. And I've talked about, wanting to know who our quarterback is. I want to know who all the starters are. Not because I want to know. I mean, obviously I want to know because I want to know. But I want to know. I want to see a depth chart so that all of these players can get reps against, I want to see who's the starting running back. So we'll go through a little bit of these position battles, but I have written down as the ones I really want to talk about: cornerback, defensive line, quarterback, running back, and tight end. I want to know, so corner, like I just said, is it going to be Javon Thomas, the true freshman? Is it going to be Josh DeBerry, the transfer, Tony Grimes, the transfer, Sam McCall, the transfer? Who's going to win that other cornerback job? And I don't know, but all the reports coming out of fall camp is all of these guys are taking reps with the ones. And to me, that just takes away from getting these starting reps for whoever the guy is going to be. Now, there's an opinion here is does the coaching staff know who they're going to send out there? To me, I'm a believer that they already know. They've seen 2 weeks of fall camp now. They've seen all the spring. Now, I know there's some guys that weren't here and just got here, whether it be transferred, true freshmen. But, I feel confident saying that they know who their guys are. They know who they want to jog out there. Maybe not, but I can at least tell you, of the 4 or 5 big-time position battles that we're going to discuss, that the coaching staff knows on at least 3 or 2, 3 or 4, 3 or 5, 4 or 5. They feel they know on most of them. They know who their starting quarterback is. So let that guy, assuming it is Connor Wigman, let him get all these reps. Let him have those reps. That's where I stand on this. I'm a big believer in what those reps mean. I think it means a lot. I mean, I compare it to baseball, being a baseball guy, but if I'm our starting first baseman for my high school team, right? If I'm the starting first baseman, if I'm the starter, lock down the starter, I want to see our best pitcher. I don't want the backup first baseman who's fighting for a job, even though it's my job. I don't want him seeing the guy throwing 90 plus and I hit off the JV guy throwing 60 or throwing 75. That doesn't help me. It doesn't help me get ready for varsity baseball to hit against a dude, throwing 70 miles per hour. It doesn't help me. So that's why the reps are so valuable to me. That is what it means to me. You have to see the game speed, see a real SEC defensive line, defensive backfield, offensive line, running back room, wide receiver room, quarterback room. You want all of these players to see that. So, I don't want Max Johnson getting a ton of reps against the Texas A&M defense if Connor Wigman is the guy, and they know that. And that is my argument. That is my whole argument. To sum all that up, I just think these reps are so valuable to a player. Some might disagree. Maybe I'm overvaluing these reps, but I think they're valuable, and I think they help you out on the field. You want that. Why are NFL teams sending out their starters for a quarter in preseason games? Because they want them to see a game. They want them to see game speed, real deal players, the real thing. Now you risk injury in the NFL and that kind of stuff. And I get that, but you have to see the real game speed to be ready to go for the start of the season. And that is why I want to know who's going to start soon. I don't want to know for me, even though I do selfishly, I want to know who's going to be the starters so we can have fun talk about it here on Lock on Aggies. But at the end of the day, I think it's what's best for this football team. So, at the quarterback position, Max Johnson and Connor Wigman are fighting for this spot. I think it's Connor Wigman. Everything I've seen from fall camp, everything I've heard is Connor Wigman's the guy. I don't think there's going to be much. I don't think this is a tight quarterback battle. I don't think we've ever thought that. I think that at SEC Media Days, Coach Fisher kind of made it seem a little bit more like he made it seem more of a battle than I had anticipated, but I still don't. It's not a battle that I'm by any means concerned about, or I think Wigman's going to win, and I feel confident to say that. The tight end position battle is one that so here's a great example. Let's talk about this. This is one. Now, I know Jake Johnson was getting some reps with the ones, but Donovan Green I still thought was going to be the guy, of course, until he went down from the ACL tear a few days ago. This is a battle that I can see dragging on another week or two because is it Theo and Jaden Platt and Jake Johnson? Who is in this battle? Players that I guess the coaching staff probably didn't imagine would play a ton this year. So, Max Wright's in there too, but I've talked about how I think his role is kind of defined, and he's dealing with they held him out of the fall, one of the recent fall scrimmages with an injury. But, I think you want to see this. I want to see all this stuff put to bed soon. And so let me know in the YouTube comments, ladies and gentlemen, where do you stand on this? Does it not bother you either way? Do you want the coaching staff to let it ride until close to the season? Let's think about this. It is August 18th. Let's count this out. August 18th, the first Texas A&M football game is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 days away. We were basically 2 weeks away from Texas A&M's home kickoff against New Mexico. So the question is, we're going to know a week before. I feel pretty confident saying that we'll know a week before. So I would say we'll put a date on that. I would say by the 26th, 27th, maybe 25th, we'll know the depth chart. Normally they announce starting quarterback earlier than that. I would expect a starting quarterback announcement any day now. Truly any day. We've seen other schools start to announce quarterbacks, start to announce who their starters are. I foresee this being any day we'll know who the starting quarterback is. And like I said, I don't think it's much of a battle as some other schools. It's not the battle at Ole Miss, some of those battles where there's a ton of talented guys. And I'm not saying Max Johnson's talented as well, but I just think Connor Wigman is on another level to where he's the guy. I feel pretty confident saying that. So I think you'll know the answer to that soon. But and then you look at the defensive line. That is another one. I could see that drawing on a little bit longer just because DJ Hicks just got to campus. We know the talent he has. We know that you can't have him not on the football field in some capacity in his true freshman season. I mean, if you've seen the videos of him, he's massive. He looks strong. He looks athletic. He looks ready to just be a dominant force in the SEC. So but the coaching staff, him being a later enrollee, they haven't seen it, a ton from him to where you don't know what his role is going to be. So I think defensive line's a position I could see this battle rolling on one more week. Maybe cornerback and tight end as well, but quarterback you're going to know sooner than later. And then the running back room, I don't think, to me, whoever's named as the starter, it doesn't carry much weight to me, simply because we know how much we know the way Coach Petrino likes to run an offense, and we know that a lot of guys are going to get carries. We know that I think David Bailey's going to get carries to go along with the people that are going to be the guys in Amari Daniels, Le'Veon Moss, and Reuben Owens. So you got 4 running backs that I think are going to get a good amount of carries this year. So it'll be interesting to see if you have a guy or a whole bunch of guys. Are you going to have a 13 carries a game and then 6 and 6 to where the guy getting 13 is clearly the guy? Or are you going to have it be closer to 8, 8, and 8, 8, 8, and 8, and then 4 for David Bailey? That's going to be 10, 10, and 10, and then 4 for David Bailey. That's going to be the question for this football team is there a guy for the running back room? And I really don't know. That'll be an interesting thing to see play out. Now, of course, they're going to name a starter. There will be a starter, but to me, it's almost like in baseball when you have to put a reliever in to start a game and we call him an opener. It would be like he's an opener, and then you're going to have this guy mix in. So that's the position battles that I'm curious to see how they play out. We've talked about them a ton here on Locked On Aggies. If you go back on the page, you'll find us discuss all these different position battles. But I do think, to sum all this up, I think these reps, those first team reps, are so valuable to these players that I really do hope Coach Fisher, Coach Petrino, Coach Durkin decide who their guys are and name the starters so that these last week and a half of fall camp, these players are able to get reps best on best, second best on second best, third best on third best, which is just a win-win for everybody. Because here's the deal. In the 2 deep, I mean, you know how many talented players are in the 2 deep for this Texas A&M football team, to where the 2 deep on offense and defense are going to be going against a lot of talent. If you say, I want Max Johnson to get good reps against talented players in case he needs to come in, if Wigman were to go down with an injury or something, I think the reps he's getting against the 2s at Texas A&M are a lot better than reps you're getting against the 2s at other schools. This is a deep roster full of talented players. So I think that, the talent is far enough spread that everybody that, 2s v 2s, 3s v 3s, 1s v 1s are getting what they need to be ready to go for the season if their number is called upon for some reason in the 2 deep or 3 deep. So I feel good about these position battles. I feel good that the coaching staff's going to make, I'm a believer in trust your coaches. I trust our coaches at Texas A&M. They're going to make the right decisions. I feel confident about that. And I think this football season is going to be a big success. So I feel good about the position battles. I think we'll know the answer to who's the starting quarterback within the next few days, maybe this weekend, maybe Monday, Tuesday. And then the rest of these position battles I could see dragging out a little bit longer. But I think by the end of next week, we'll know who's going to start for the Texas A&M Aggies this season. And I am over the moon excited to discuss that right here on Locked On Aggies. The offensive line is my biggest concern on this 2023 Texas A&M football team. We're going to discuss why coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, It's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Biggest concerns for the season. We're going to run through 3 of them coming up right here, but I'm going to start with the offensive line. I do want to add a note from a show. I think it was Wednesday's Locked On Aggies. I misread a quote about Trey Zune. I thought that I just read the quote wrong. People commented and let me know, which I appreciate. Those of you that did comment and let me know that, I really appreciate that because I don't want to be spreading wrong information. So thanks for letting me know that. But Trey Zune, I thought that I read the quote and I thought he was kind of dealing with a nagging injury, but it turns out he was talking about last season, and he said himself a quote. I didn't see that quote. I feel 100%, 110%, best I've ever felt, that kind of stuff. So Trey Zune is not banged up in any way. He's good to go. He's not battling any injuries, which when I read that quote wrong, of course, I was concerned, which I shared that concern here on the show, but I misread the quote. So nobody worry about Trey Zune. He's all good to go. He's ready to rock for the season. So throw that out the window if you heard me say that. And those who commented that, let me know. I really appreciate it. And do that. If I ever say something wrong, if I read a quote wrong, let me know in the comments because I want to be able to correct it. So thank you all for doing that. But my biggest concern for this season is the offensive line. It's plain and simple. I mean, it's a talented group, but it was not good last year. Dealt with injuries last year. And the sad reality is you hate putting everything on the shoulders of these big uglies up front. But at the end of the day, if they're bad, we're bad. If they are not good, this Texas A&M football team is not going to succeed on the field. I hate to say it, but it's the reality of the situation that we're dealing with here. They have to come out and be dominant. They have to come out and be technically sound. Steve Adazio, I hope that he did a lot in the offseason, the offensive line coach. I hope he did a lot in the offseason to be better. I'm going to talk a little bit about my opinion of the offensive line and why I think it's a little bit mental. I played, my dad listens to my show as well, and my papaw, and they will both tell you that I'm a bigger guy, but there was not much fight in this guy during my couple of years playing left tackle in high school. I'm a big guy. I looked the part of an offensive lineman, but I didn't have that dog mentality. To me, offensive line is about just being an utter psychopath. You have to just be ready to bury people. You're not out there to make friends. You are out there to park people on the ground. Pancakes with lots of syrup. We want people on the ground, hit them hard, hit them early, hit them often, be physical. And the reason I say it's a mentality, and I'm gonna make my case for that. Like I talked about, I'm a big guy. I'm a relatively stronger guy, but I just never had that I'm gonna park you on the floor mentality. That's why I wasn't a good offensive lineman. I think, even though I had the size and the strength, people, in the SEC, all these guys, Trey Zune, Layden Robinson, Mark Naboo, Reuben Fothry, Cam Dewberry, all these guys that are going to be Bryce Foster, they're all strong. They all bench press a lot, squat a lot, bigger guys, massive guys. I mean, Fothry is an utter unit of a human being. And the whole offensive line, I mean, Bryce Foster is on the bigger side of centers with his frame, which you love to see. You love having big offensive linemen. But they're all strong. They're all strong in the weight room. They all can do that. They're all, do this. They're the same strength as any other SEC team. That's just how this works. They're all talented, strong players. So I think there's 2 things that matter. Technique, which matters a lot, and then having that dog mentality. I'm almost a believer. This is a stretch, I know, but I am a believer that being physical and being a dog can almost is almost more important than being technically sound. It's kind of like we talked about with Afua, the recent offensive line commit for the Aggies in the 2024 class. I mean, he was just bigger than everybody else. He wasn't the most technically sound offensive lineman. He is now, but he just buried people. He just put them in the dirt. And I think that's my mentality. So this offensive line, what I'm saying is I think it's a mentality. They just need to go out there and destroy people. They can do it. It's all in here, I think. Now, we want them to be technically sound. Hopefully, Coach Adazio, Coach Petrino, and Coach Fisher, which not hopefully, we know they did to improve this offensive line. But if they have that dog mentality, I think this offensive line is going to have a big time season. Second concern is stopping the run. The Aggies have to stop the run. We've talked about it time and time again. You cannot talk enough about it. Texas A&M has to stop the run. If they don't stop the run, this thing isn't going to flow. Oh, and one last thing. I'm sorry. Back to the offensive line. I got to this and I got a little sidetracked. But you have, if the offensive line isn't good, this offense won't flow. If you go from a good offensive line to a bad offensive line, can be the difference of 2 to 3 wins. It's hard to get by with the bad offensive line. We saw that last year with Texas A&M, and it led to a talented team going 5-7. The offensive line has to be good if this offense is going to put up points. That's my last thing on them. But stopping the run, Texas A&M has to stop the run. They have the players to do it. Like I said, I've talked about DJ Hicks. You love bringing him in. He's going to help there. You've got a talented defensive line and a talented linebacker group. We'll talk a little bit about the linebackers here in the mailbag, but you have to be able to stop the run. If you can't stop the run, SEC teams will just run it again and again and again, and then your extremely talented secondary doesn't get a chance to shine because you're just getting the ball run down your throat the whole game. So Texas A&M has got to stop the run. That is my second biggest concern, but I almost think stopping the run and the offensive line are kind of 1A and 1B. I think they're both vital to this Texas A&M football team. The last one is stay healthy. It's, and it's nothing. I know that there's freak injuries, that there's injuries that are based off strength and conditioning. I'm doing some research on that. I had a comment about that the other day. I'm looking into it. It's been hard to find it. We'll hopefully talk about that coming up here in the next few days. But, Donovan Green goes down with an ACL tear. That is a freak injury. There is data behind it that says if you strengthen, the muscles around it and that it will decrease the chances of an ACL tear. I don't think that's what happened to Donovan Green. I think it was a freak injury, but you got to stay healthy. If this team can stay healthy, we know how good Texas A&M can be. But if you get into the season early and you lose an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, and a linebacker, and a running back goes down, then your chances of being good, of being dominant, go down. Now, I get it. There's injuries for every team. Every team deals with them. There's a ton of injuries all over. It's going to happen. Every SEC team loses players. It's part of the gauntlet, which is SEC football. But at the end of the day, if you're healthier than other teams, you're going to win more football games. So the goal for this Texas A&M football team needs to be to stay healthy. And if they don't, that is a massive concern for me for this 2023 Texas A&M football roster. We got a mailbag question about the linebacker room. I'm going to talk about the depth of it and why I think that it's in a good, not great spot. We'll talk a little bit about the linebackers and a few other fun mailbag questions coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. So, linebacker room. Someone asked about it, and it's in the comments, and it's definitely a concern, I think, based on depth. But let's go through the names that I feel pretty good about. We of course feel good about Chris Russell and Edgerrin Cooper. I feel good about them. Edgerrin Cooper. I always struggle to say his name. We feel good about them. I feel great about them. 2 good linebackers. I like what we have there. The question marks then come in with depth. You bring in Terrion York. You bring in Geronte Davis from Jackson State, playing with Coach Sanders, Coach Prime, and then Martrell Harris. Those 3 guys, first of all, the tape on Geronte Davis, I like it a lot. I think he can succeed. Excuse me. I think he can succeed at the SEC level. Will it be this year? When will it be? I don't totally know, but I've watched the tape on him, and I feel pretty good that he can come in and help this Texas A&M football team in some capacity. Terrion York, young guy, of course, but once I've heard he's doing well in camp. I've heard he's fighting for a spot. And then Martrell Harris, I've heard a lot of good things from him at fall camp. I've heard that he's gotten bigger, faster, stronger. He's in great shape, ready to go for a big season. So this linebacker room, like I said, I feel good about Cooper and Russell. If those 2 stay healthy, linebacker is not a concern for me. If one of those guys go down with injury, that is when I start to have a little bit of a concern. So it's a room that, unlike the rest of this roster, is top heavy. I've talked about how deep, obviously, I think the offensive line, you could argue, is a bit top heavy. You've got some guys, Mark Naboo, Besantis. You've got some Cronover. You've got some talented players in to back up the offensive lineman, but not enough to where I feel great about having a whole backup defensive line. You got a lot of young guys there too. This linebacker room, it's the same thing. I think you got a talented starting group and a couple backups that I could live with. But if you have people starting to drop like flies with injuries early into the season, this linebacker room is going to be a concern for me. But right now, if people stay healthy, not worried about it. I think it's going to be a room that shines. I think they'll help stop the run. I think it's going to be a room that it helps this Texas A&M team win football games. If you start losing Cooper, Russell, York, people go down to injuries, then is when we begin to be concerned. So that is my thoughts on the linebacker room. Next question, and then we got a fun one. Next question is, what do we want to see against New Mexico for us to feel good about this Texas A&M football team? What I want to see is offensive line. Now, I know it's New Mexico, but I want to see the offensive line just be mean, push people around. Like I talked about in segment 2, I want to see them just throw people around. That's the first thing I want to see. Second thing I want to see, once again, is I want to see my concerns. I want to see you stop the run. I want to see you stay healthy. So my 3 concerns, I want to see those things look good. I also want to see the receivers getting open. I want to see Connor Wigman hitting open guys, making good throws, making good decisions, using his legs. And I want to see, lastly, the last thing I want to see is you win by a wide margin. You don't want to be playing these not great football teams. You don't want it to be a game where at halftime, it's, within the game is within reason for the team to potentially, make a comeback. I want this to be a 59-0. I don't want them to get past the 50-yard line. You just want to blow the brakes off this team. That will make me feel good. If this is a game that is a little close, I'm not going to be stoked about that. So this is a game I want Texas A&M to come in and just blow the doors off New Mexico, win it big. I don't want any of my concerns to come to fruition. Everybody stay healthy because you have a big game the next week against Miami. But this will be a good tune-up before the Aggies head down to the Sunshine State to take on the Miami Hurricanes in one of the bigger games of the season. Last question, and it's a fun one. PS4 or Xbox for me, real quick, before we call it a day here on Locked On Aggies. I had an Xbox 360, changed over to PS4, currently have PS4, don't play a ton of video games, play a little bit, don't have as much time as I did back in the day. I wish I did. But I'm going to have to go PS4. I don't have the new one, the PS5. Some of my roommates do. There's one sitting right over here. It's pretty cool. I like it. But I'm not a massive gamer, but I'm going to have to go with PlayStation. That is where I land on this debate. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Everybody have an outstanding weekend. I hope you really do just have a good weekend. We are so close to football, and I can't wait to get into all that next week on Locked On Aggies. Have a good weekend, and we will see you on Monday.